Carbondale, and Carbondale picked us, so here we are. And really, I fell in love with this community from day one, and Carbondale has embraced me as an individual, us as a business, and I really see the collision, the way that I describe it, is the collision of urban meets rural in Carbondale, because I think that there's a lot of people that either visit Carbondale or move from urban areas or travel to urban areas and have what I would deem more urban ideas and bring them to a rural area. So I find that this area is unique in that aspect, more so than I saw in Mancos and Durango. And with that comes some issues that I feel that I've been privy to just in the year that I lived here, one being housing. I'm not an exception, even as a small business owner, it was tough for us to find housing here with 2 dogs, and we actually pay more in rent here than we did downtown Carbondale. And I made twice as much income there and moved here and I'm paying more in rent. So I'd heard about the housing crisis, but really I'm still trying to figure out where I fit into Carbondale as an entrepreneur and small business owner that sees approximately 100 residents a week at our small business and still struggle to even see how we could afford a house here. So I'm personally attuned to that issue, that I would like to be a part of solving that problem. And also going back to, I love what Hank was talking about, is I have a really big heart for seniors and elders in the community because I was raised by my grandparents, basically all 4 of them, because I was raised by a single mom and my dad wasn't really in my life, so I was raised by grandparents, and I have a lot of elderly patients that come through LiveWell Wellness, and there's just a really big rift and a concern around where people can retire. So that is one area, if I were elected to council, that I'd like to explore around where elders and seniors can stay in the valley if they choose to, so they can stay with their loved ones and family and not have to move down to the Front Range. I also am very passionate. I also, on the flip side, love what the 20s and 30-something generation, kind of right in the middle. So the 20s and 30s have so much to bring to the table now. And that is something as well that I would love to see a 20-something on town council. I think that the council's also missing out with having somebody in their 20s or someone in their 30s, different issues they can bring to Carbondale grows. I mean, Carbondale is going to grow. It's one of those towns like Durango, Bend, Eugene, you name it, and the growth is going to happen, and it's an opportunity for people like us as a town to just get really creative around affordable housing. What goes in big empty lot on the highway. I don't know any of the history. I just know that my business is right next to city markets, so I hear a lot about if they're going to start building or not, and they're not going to build, they are, and that's about all I'm privy to, and how that will affect sales tax and Carbondale, and if that's not going to happen, how does this town explore what go there, whether it be a senior center, whether it be some kind of resort that tapped into ecotourism in this area, which the wilderness is it's abundant here, and I just feel really fortunate to live, where we live, and when I travel to San Diego, like I did last week, to see family or go to an urban area, I love to visit cities, but when I come here, it just feels like home, and I just want to be a part of the smart growth process. I think really all I have to say.
Thank you, Jade.
Yeah.
Any questions, burning questions you'd like to ask us?
Not right now.
Okay. How about on the board? Anybody? I'll start off. Jade, what does it mean to be a trustee?
To me, it means collaboration. It means really being open to hearing all opinions. But to me, it means representing the residents of Carbondale. So leaving my personal opinion behind and being able to make a logical, methodical decision based upon the needs of the town. The town now, as well as how the town grows. So representing the residents of Carbondale and really listening with keen ears and being empathetic and just passionate about that process. And one thing, I as wellness center, is I'm really good at one-on-one. That's what I do for a living. Because I'm a doctor, so it's like I've seen 50,000 people one-on-one. My challenge is stepping into more of the counsel's hard for me, and so I am challenging myself personally to step into that arena to represent a bigger belief than what I personally stand for, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Marty? Yeah, I liked the story about Great Uncle, and it sounded like he was a listener, that he was listening to people's opinions about what improved their lives. Is that something that you have any, I'm going to say preconceived, but any notions about what you think would improve life here in Carbondale, or do you feel you're only listening to different ideas?
I think, that's still really raw for me. So,
okay, I'm sorry to ask,
because he's like that. So,
it's obviously had a significant impact on your life, and I like what you say about making fellow citizens proud. And do you have any? What do you perceive as being, say, the top 3 or 4 problems that Carbondale faces?
And I kind of the way that I practice is I'm like a medical detective, so I don't necessarily get something as a problem. I get something as wow, how could I collaborate with some really smart people and people that have, I think. Everybody has ideas, and it's about bringing those ideas to the table, and actually, whatever, forming committees or forming, space where people are at least feeling heard. And I think number one for me is housing. And Durango, actually, and I don't know all the details about Durango, but I do know that they hired someone full-time at their town to basically deal with their Airbnb issue. All my friends were Airbnb, their rooms, their houses, and in Durango, it became such an issue that the town did commit and invest in hiring someone to, I think they created different zones, and then you had to apply, and then, abide by the same laws as hotels would, and, I don't know all the rules that are happening in Carbondale, if there are, but I do know that is a big concern, but I'd like to hear both sides of the table, because there are a lot of people that are renting out rooms in Carbondale so they can afford their houses, but I don't know if there's a big issue that people are buying up houses and just renting those houses, but I do know that trying to rent here, and I've tried to help 5 or 6 people find housing in Carbondale. They literally couldn't, so they're living down like Rifle or Glen Springs. So housing is one for me. I think that Carbondale, I think of identity, as a town. Maybe I haven't been here long enough around what is Carbondale's identity. This weird Mountain Fair, and everybody knew about Mountain Fair 25 years ago. But Durango has a train that people come and flocks and fill up all the hotels, and it's a big tourist attraction. I think Carbondale has an opportunity with ecotourism to tap into something. I don't know what that is, but I see signs all over Carbondale. Go to Panama, go to Costa Rica, go to Ecuador, go to all these places to surf and do yoga. Well, people could come to Carbondale, and I think that we have an opportunity to put Carbondale on the map. It's something a little bit more branding or something, if the town decided they wanted to do that. So, bringing tourism here, housing, green energy, of course, that's not my specialty. Public transportation is key. I mean, the public transportation here is unbelievable. It's better than Oakland. Durango doesn't really have it. It's such a blessing, and I can't believe a small area, a rural area, has the public transportation that it does. So, yeah, thank you.
Other?
I think you mentioned the words like smart growth or something like that, right? So talk a little bit more about that. What does
Everybody
growth mean to you? How would you envision it being applied to Carbondale?
I wish that I knew a little bit more about the details around the subsidized housing, like what the county calls subsidized housing over Carbondale. I know I live in a restricted house. The owner tried to sell it and couldn't, so the housing authority is legally letting them rent to us. But smart housing to me means, and I've been in many PNC meetings because of LiveWell Wellness, and they were changing the zoning for commercial to residential, so it means, housing that is truly affordable, in a sense that, people like myself, like in the $350 to $500 or $250 to $450, like could afford to actually buy a home and not feel, that we're never going to be able to buy a home, and therefore lose out on people that want to live here but they can't afford to. So methodical, I don't. Right next to where we live, there's I don't know how many townhomes going up, 24. The listing prices start at $720. I mean, that's a high price tag for. I don't get it, and I would like to see the housing explored a little bit. But I also don't know that site. I'm not an architect. I'm not. I don't have a lot of experience with that. But I'm totally really eager to learn more about it. So to me, smart housing means affordable. It means green building possible. So like radiant heating, solar panels. Trying to bring down the monthly bills. I was just at my cousin's house in California, and she pays $600 for electric. No one in the neighborhood has solar. It's sunny. She's on the sunny side of San Diego, and she showed her bill $620. I'm like, that's not. I think that we do a better job, and we are doing a better job, really integrating that into like building materials and development.
Thanks, Jake. We're right out of time unless anybody has any burning questions. All right. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Julia? You know the seat well? You missed the introduction, but just feel free to make some opening comments.
I don't have any comments. You've all read mine. You all read it. I feel like some of you know me. Just my work. I feel my volunteer work downtown for itself, and I'm not much one to talk about what I do. But you can ask me questions. I mean, yeah. Go ahead and ask me.
Okay. I've been asking them if they have any questions of us before we get started with our questions of you. Anything? You personally. Yeah.
Oh, me?
Yeah. No. Okay. All right, board. Who has a question for Julia? I guess.
I'll answer. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Just as we've been focused a lot recently on having conversations about how we can engage our Spanish-speaking community better, and our recent immigrant community in particular, and make it feel part of our town's political process and help communication and that sort of stuff. So could you speak to that at all, and how you might bring something forward in that regard?
I'm bilingual, so I'm not a native Spanish speaker, but I learned it from my years of housekeeping management, my years of working in kitchens and restaurants with Hispanics, and I'm married to one at one point. So, I just think, how would I engage? Maybe by just holding, I thought about something. I like the mayor's coffee hour thing, the Smithy, I perhaps just in the library, just very open, or just kind of trustee time at the library or something like that, where I just receive comments. I know the Hispanic community would take a bit more outreach than that, perhaps engaging with the Valley Settlement, like reaching out to them, seeing if I could speak. It has been on my list of volunteer things to do, speak out, to give a presentation to them about recycling. But I feel perfectly comfortable speaking in Spanish. I had to do it for my job for many years. I've done two intense language courses in Mexico. I've also studied in college, and you also have my background in anthropology with a specialty in Latin America, cultural anthropology. So, I feel like I could just the communication skills that I have would be, perhaps speak up or just not speak, but just maybe just be available for comments.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Piggyback off of that question. So right now, some pretty willful middle schoolers have proposed an immigration policy, a resolution for us to adopt. And in that, policy discussions, some legal issues, some emotional issues for the immigrant community. How would you go about making a decision to evaluate a resolution like that in terms of where should the town go? What would be your process to weigh in on that?
So I think I've read a bit about it. I'm not quite sure. How would I evaluate it?
Yeah, maybe it's a difficult question, but in terms of evaluating a policy was something that, for me, has been as difficult as immigration, where local government fits into that. Back off. Obviously, there's a little bit of education, there's outreach. How would you go through that process so you feel comfortable adopting a resolution?
I guess I would have to read it and understand. Read it. I mean, my gut reaction is to tell you when I would think empathy-wise. When I was dating my ex-husband, he was held in detention, so I've been through that whole process of somebody being grabbed by Migra and being thrown in detention in Denver just off the great bus. I do have a great deal of empathy, having a loved one go through that personally. I think that probably would figure in, because I'm assuming that this is because they're afraid of immigration rates on schools. Is that sort of? I think I've heard of that in the news.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think there's enough context for me to fairly ask that
question. I am sort of up on things that I have trouble with them, and I'm not.
That's okay.
I would just. I know that I'm able to empathize.
There's a little.
Okay. And as a former employer of pretty much in the years I was house manager, I only had one American citizen, I don't know, work for me. I understand employers needs as well, and it's a whole complicated.
Sure.
From the years of working in Aspen, I've had to hire people, having to go through outside agencies in order to avoid the sort of legal mess work corporations. It's definitely we need here.
Thank you. Sorry. Heather.
I'll kind of, it's not specifically about that, but a little bit different. We have a lot of things that come before us that are amazing initiatives, significant issues, opportunities even, many of which look for the town to help monetarily, basically. Lots of different things. If say, an immigration resolution might be asking for a a new dedicated police officer. And these are all examples that aren't necessarily specific. Daycare, looking for how can we subsidize new child care opportunities, environmental initiatives, right, waste diversion or energy initiatives, right, each one coming for us as opportunities, but oftentimes looking for funding. What's your understanding of where the town sits right now, and how would you evaluate things like that come before the trustees?
Well, my understanding of where the town sits right now, I feel like I have a pretty good just working with public works as I do on the environmental issues, and just being around different folks who work for the government. There isn't very much money in the budget, depending on primarily sales taxes, and so we have to be really mindful of that. Like I know as the Parks Department, that they haven't had added any additional money for additional staff to take care of that. I know that's just like talk to Russ. This was from being like all the time that I am just around town hall or public works or parks, because of my involvement in the community. And I would have to evaluate things on or money is to first of all, where can we find it in the budget, and also where can I have the greatest
Okay, Marty.
Quick question. You had a pretty dramatic career change from the hospitality, from housekeeping to farmer's market. And I do understand that housekeeping management is extremely stressful. There's never enough people, and there's a lot of pressure to get those as quickly as possible. What prompted you to take that change in careers?
That's a really actually a long story, but the time was right. The time was right really for me to do something different. I worked in hospitality, starting with restaurants and working my way in management in '96 to 2012. Things that happened, it was a good time for me to leave. And kind of evaluate. And I also, I lived in Carbondale in the same few blocks since 1996. Bought my home in late 2000 in that same area. And it gave me a chance, and I tried to take time to become involved in the community. And I just felt like at different times I wasn't welcome. Maybe it was because of, I sort of was like a super corporate kind of, I mean, I've always been a little kind of weird, but just had that kind of very corporate, like, persona for years. We're working up a few jobs. I've had a zillion of them. I wanted a job or I wanted to do something that I would become more, I couldn't have time and opportunity to volunteering sort of my blood. My mother did it for years, where I grew up in Danville, Illinois. And I felt that I wanted to go back to school. Why farmer's market? Because during that time, I thought, I was thinking, when I was a kid, what made me the happiest is riding horses and digging in the garden. So I started a job there. I really into local agriculture, farmers markets. That's when I started volunteering with woodworkers, and I love history. Started volunteering with the Historical Society. And I just was given a bit of a financial opportunity as well to kind of I had just be able to explore my interests and become more involved. And I took a class in sustainable agriculture. That's how I got started, like going back to school. I've always taken classes at CMC. In '97 I started, but that's when I started. Like, okay, I want to go back to school and get a degree in sustainability and just train career paths.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Anybody else?
Do I have a little more time or no? Just
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know. I mean, I just kind of assumed folks kind of knew, I mean, you feel like kind of know, most of you know, but yeah, I feel like my volunteerism, my work speaks for itself. I do volunteer things like I help the police department hang up flyers, drug take back day. I've given presentations at the Crystal Meadows Senior Housing, on recycling, also on our environmental survey came out because those folks don't use, a lot of them don't use the internet. Paper surveys would be useful. And they also came to me with just issues, mainly the transportation thing. The circulator bus there. I don't know. Not good at public speaking.
One more?
Yes, Heather.
So you are still enrolled in CMC? And one full-time job, and then you have like kind of another full-time job, and then volunteer, or another job, right?
Yeah, I do a part-time internship with the City of Aspen, waste specialist.
And then lots of volunteering, significantly beyond the e-board.
Yeah.
Where would these sort of fall, like in your priorities? Is it another thing that you'd add on to that package, or do you see certain things kind of falling away? How would you fit? What's another commitment?
That's a really good question. So I do go to school part-time. One for financial reasons, and another because I do a lot of different things. I signed up for 8 credits this semester, and I just wouldn't sign up to do a Tuesday class. None of my classes are on Tuesdays this semester. I thought about it, and if I am appointed, perhaps I would drop a class and just take one. But it would definitely become a priority. Of course, e-board is a big chunk. I mean, it takes a while to do what I do. I tend to get involved with things and get them done. Obviously, I would not be able to be the chairperson of the e-board if I was a trustee, so that would have to go. And, little things I do with CCH, that's just here and there. And I'm no longer volunteering for Windrockers Historical Society, but I am super involved in my school with a lot of volunteer stuff. And I do the Federal Work Study Program, the financial aid one. So, well, my job in Aspen ends in October, unless they can find somebody to keep me on. If I got the position, this would be the priority for the next 10 months. I have thought about, I have been encouraged by, AJ and Katrina, when there were different appointments up to apply for the trustee position. And I was like, I want to wait for school. I want to wait for school to end or for me to graduate. But now seemed to be a perfect opportunity, and I did think about running in 2018. I think it'll all work out because things usually do. I work into the wee hours. I have a lot of energy that way, so I don't think it would be a problem. I would be willing to drop a class if need be to make this, a priority. I'd still, but yeah, great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Luis, you ready?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. I've only met a few of you on a couple of occasions, so I figured I'd take a little time to just introduce myself, tell you a little bit about my background. Luis Yanis. I've been here in the Valley for 8 years and in Carbondale for 2 years, which is where we decided to put down roots after living in Basalt and Willits and experiencing firsthand what this housing market is like. Before this, I was born in Miami, where we lived with my family for most of our lives. Raised in Peru for a few years in my childhood before coming back to the States. And I moved here with my family 8 years ago to take a job with the Aspen Art Museum. I'd raised my kids in a small town, which I had always dreamed of doing. I always thought it was going to be a beach town, growing up in Florida, but it turned into a mountain town instead, which is fine. I was away on vacation when I first learned about this position of the trustee, and I knew that Katrina had stepped down. We were in Peru for about 3 weeks on vacation, and it gives you a lot of perspective when you're away for that long. And coming back, I felt that it was my duty to step up and at least put myself out there for this position. If anything, because, as you said, there's diversity, a large population here in this community who are very proud of their backgrounds. They're very proud of where they come from, but they have a tough time connecting Carbondale and the Valley. I feel very lucky in my privilege that I'm a native Spanish speaker, fully bilingual, and I can integrate between both communities with relative ease And I know that's not the case always for a lot of people here in the Valley. But since arriving here, I've felt nothing but openness, met a lot of great people, made a lot of great friends through volunteering with KDNK, English in Action, and but again, at the same time, I'm keenly aware of how segregated this community is between Latino and Anglo residents. My hope is that if you do appoint me to become a trustee to fill out this term, that I can help bridge that gap by bringing my own perspective and my own experiences to the board. Although I've not had any experience in public office, I have seen firsthand through my professional experience how boards operate, whether it's new building projects, permitting in Aspen, or contracts, which I have to handle. So I'm very familiar with how boards operate. I want to say Carbondale is just an amazing community, one that is unique in how we are very open and welcoming to really anyone, whether it's from different socio or economic backgrounds. And I think that's unique to this valley. And I want to be sure that in this position that we continue to push that for everyone here, whether it's through housing, affordable housing, or as many other applicants have brought up, seniors, what we do for nonprofits with the Third Street Center. I think it's an amazing community and one that I hope to be able to serve in this position.
Thank you, Luis.
Thanks.
Any starter questions for Luis? I'll start off re-asking a couple of the same questions. In what areas of municipal governance are you most and least comfortable with, and why?
That's a good question. I think most comfortable, likely in things that are very detail-oriented. To me, it comes naturally. Paying close attention to ordinances, contracts, budgets. Always asking questions, then questions about those questions to follow up, because the decisions that this board makes have a great impact on the life and quality of life and the future of the town. So to me, I think that's one of the areas that I'd feel most comfortable in. The areas that I'd feel least comfortable in are probably the contentious issues that come up before the board, whether it's about, things to do with zoning or obviously the city market, or things that people are constantly talking about, because how important those decisions that you have to make as a board are, people are going to talk about. And but at least I think from my perspective, I wouldn't be making them alone. You're making them together as a board, although you don't always, can always agree, but at least as a board you can choose to, through majority obviously, vote to move ahead with those decisions. So.
Thank you. Marty.
Your credentials are impressive, RIT, teaching at FIU. Mm-hmm. But my question is, you spoke about working to integrate the Anglo and Latino communities. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's something on everyone's mind. Mm-hmm. Any specific thoughts or ideas that you might have towards that end?
Yeah, I've got several ideas, and I would also reach out. One of the first things I think I'd do is reach out to community small business owners in the community that are from a Latino background, find out what it is that they feel could work towards pulling in that segment of the community. I think bilingual flyers that I know are put out for a lot of events, but really should be for, I think, across the board. If it's possible, maybe even an agenda that's also in Spanish and English, so people know what's coming up and what is really, the board is discussing, what's being talked about in town government. So I think those areas are bridging that language barrier and finding really community members besides myself that can really go out into our community at large and help to bring more people into the fold.
Thank you.
Just along those lines, Luis, do you still see yourself volunteering for English in Action and those organizations if you were to be appointed? I
would still volunteer for KDNK only because that's a lot of fun. And for English in Action, I was about to start volunteering again and taking another student tutor. Unfortunately, it didn't work out right out when it started in the spring. I would probably wait and see and take somebody in after the term ended. Obviously, depending on re-election or appointment. But I think it's important, and I would want to continue, and even if it's just going there once a week to help in terms of what they have there is dropping classes so people can learn English and learn to integrate. And it's, to me, when I did have a student and it was for a full year, to me was somebody that I consider now a friend for life, and it was somebody who had arrived to the area recently, and to be able to make them feel more part of the community. Granted, this was in Basalt, but you really felt like you were doing good work in that regard. So I would continue based upon my availability.
Okay. And I was just curious. Obviously, no requirements. But anybody else? Okay.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about your art background and how that might benefit all the work we're doing in partnership with Carbondale Arts and the Creative District.
Sure. Well, my art background is mainly in contemporary art. Obviously, the institution that I work for can sometimes be, considered that other side of Aspen. But having been here in this community, I think what Carbondale Arts is doing is amazing. To have put Carbondale on the map as part of a creative district, and it now being thought of attracting artists, and I think what our local artist community does is amazing. I would love to bring my knowledge to that, whether it's being more involved with Carbondale Arts, and from a professional side, figuring out how you can get the most for your money from a limited budget. We still have to do that in Aspen, even though people sometimes think we have unlimited means. So I think that I could bring a really great amount of experience, having done that for nearly 20 years. So.
Okay.
Other questions of Luis? Ben?
My question is just about, you've only been in Carbondale for a couple of years, so you've been in the Valley a little bit longer. Maybe you could just speak to, do you feel like you've been here long enough to, it's clear that you've engaged yourself very actively in our community, but do you feel like you've been here long enough to really understand the community and serve in this capacity?
That's you know what? That's a very good and very tough question, Ben. I feel like I have, only because the communities throughout the Valley are very different. Basalt, Willits, Snowmass, Aspen. But Carbondale has its own unique perspective, and I think that is often fed by people who come here and this fresh set of eyes, fresh blood that come in and realize the vitality that we have here, whether it's, become enamored by Mountain Fair, by Full Moon Bike Rides, all the things that we have here to offer. And to me, I see it continuing, and hopefully will, continue on an upswing that maintains vitality in Main Street, maintains its vitality for our residents, at the same time while opening up more and encouraging more people to get involved. I mean, it's tough. People, if they live here, then they're working somewhere else. By the time they come back, it's a place they call home. But we also want to encourage everyone to get involved, whether it's volunteering for a number of organizations and nonprofits that we have. So I think I don't lose sight of how important our community is here, and I wouldn't have made it my home if I didn't think it was important enough to do this.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Luis, I forgot to ask you if you have questions of us.
Oh, yeah. I think just one question, and I was curious, what have you guys considered the biggest success you've had maybe in your last term?
I wasn't expecting any tough questions. Biggest success?
Yeah, that can be quantitative. I mean, it's tough.
Marty?
Yeah, I'd like to give it a shot. We've gotten a lot of affordable housing approved. Okay, it isn't all built. I know that's frustrating for people, because approving it doesn't mean it's built, because that isn't up to us. That's up to the developers. I think people will see a year and a half down the road. We've got, besides the 20 units for RE1, we have, another 15, 16 units we approved? Something like that. So I think that's encouraging. I think this board has set a tone of trying to find consensus, but respectfully disagreeing. Okay, so we're in past boards, there've been conflict and yelling and screaming. So far, it hasn't come to that here. Of course, you don't take it personally that I'm looking at you.
It wasn't me, it was John Folkrod that knocked his mic off the desk.
Don't take it personally.
It wasn't me.
There have been conflicts where it's gotten loud and disrespectful. Loud, I don't care, but disrespectful. And the mayor here sets the tone, okay? Whether it's the public speaking to us, you have a time limit, you speak to the chair, you're respectful. So I find that that's an encouraging tone. I think we all, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we all can agree that we try to work together and try to find a consensus on almost every item. So to me, that's our biggest accomplishments. The tone of the board has improved dramatically from previous boards. What we've done so far in affordable housing. This environmental bill of rights that will come up later on, I think that's a really big step in saying what we stand for as a town. So, next person.
I don't think we all have to answer.
I think that sums it up.
Good.
Thank you.
You're looking at a bunch of rookies except for Frosty, and we've
I ain't talking.
find some courage.
I ain't saying.
So, but I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions?
Just in closing, I want to say thank you. I feel I can bring a unique perspective to the board. I'm even-keeled, creative problem solver, determined and persistent when presented with a challenge. And I feel like I'm a good listener and always try to keep an open mind and remove emotion from my decision-making. I also want to apologize in advance that I have to miss the second half of the meeting. I have a prior commitment that I've had on the calendar now for a few months, so just to put that out there. All the applicants tonight, I think, are very qualified and very passionate about Carbondale, so it's great to see that Hank, Julia, and Jen have all, put their necks out there. So I know you guys have a tough decision to make, but I'm sure you'll make the right one. So the best one for the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nikki, you ready? All right.
Opening statement.
Yes.
I'm always confused when I'm asked to do this because I'm never quite sure what is most important to the people that are on the receiving end, whether it's important to know more about my personal life or my professional life. And I submitted so much information all the day before I left to go on vacation. So I'll give you just a little snippet of both ends of it. And I think that I included most of it in my application. So I'm the child of a refugee family. My grandparents, so I'm second generation American, and all four of my grandparents came to this country leaving behind everything. They'd never go back. And so because of the sacrifices of my grandparents and ancestors, I got to have a pretty good life. My parents' life was hard. They were very, very impoverished, but they were, I'd say, economically poor and very culturally rich. So I don't presume to know the immigrant story of all of immigrants, but I do have that. I think that that really shaped my whole life, is being from that kind of a background and knowing that my success in life came from the sacrifices of other people. And I learned early, I don't know how I learned it, but I learned early that there was something that was owed back. And so my life really has been about contribution, both professionally and personally. So that's the personal side. Professionally, I think when I was talking with Dan, he said, asked me a question, or said that maybe the question would be asked whether or not I ever participated in a board that had to resolve really difficult issues and come to a conclusion. I lived in California for 37 years, It's a very, very big state. I lived way, way north, just about 80 miles south of Oregon in Humboldt County, which, for people who know Humboldt County, know why there's an affinity to Carbondale. Very, very similar kind of culture. In my personal life, I participated on a statewide board of directors for the California Coalition on Sexual Offending. So my professional career is in interpersonal family violence, both as an instructor and as a psychotherapist and treatment provider. And part of what this board was challenged with was it was a multidisciplinary board, spanned multiple law enforcement, victim advocacy, legal people, victim providers, treatment providers for offenders, etc. And we were charged with trying to develop for the state a sex offender management organization, commission that would deal with those issues for the entire state with regard to sex offenders being released and going back into the community. So representing probably about 20 different professional organizations, we had to develop, first we had to listen, and then we had to come up with some recommendations for the legislature for managing that population as they were released into the community. So that's my experience in dealing with. Somebody said, I've never, one of my least, I think Louise said, I'm not that comfortable with contentious issues, but really good with the detail, where for me it would be the exact opposite. I've dealt with the contentious issues, but the details is more of a difficulty for me. So that's one piece of my professional life, a little bit about my personal life, and I guess that's enough.
Thank you, Nikki. Marty.
Well, for full disclosure, she is my neighbor.
Okay.
Across the fence.
We're all neighbors.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're all neighbors with
I just
somebody.
mean like adjoining property neighbors.
That was your statement, no question?
That was my statement, no question.
Anybody want to lead off with a question?
Sure, I'll lead off with a question. I saw an award that kind of intrigued me because I'm not sure what it was. A Honey Knop Award?
That's from that organization. Okay, so that's from that statewide organization.
For outstanding service at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nikki, as it relates to being a trustee and the contentiousness or conflict on the board that sometimes arises, how do you resolve those issues? Whether it be in a group discussion or a one-on-one, somebody finds you at the grocery store, upset about something.
At me?
Yeah, how do you deal with conflict?
Well, I think a lot of people have really spoken to that, part of my, and I think part of my background is being able to listen across varying opinions. I come from a family that's multi-ethnic and with very, very different opinions. And so I think first is the ability to listen to a story. One of the things I'm really impressed in terms of Carbondale, I'll try and remember the question, but the Manus Valley Project, Manaus Valley Project, is organizing the entire valley in terms of just communicating across lines. They've been doing it for 2 years. From Aspen all the way to Rifle, their hope is to get all the way down to Parachute. And I've been participating for the last, maybe 8 or 9 months. And so in terms of resolving conflict within a board, I think the first thing is to be really respectful of an opinion that is so contrary to what you believe in, to really be able to stand in a different place and be outside of your comfort zone, and not to feel like you have to come to a conclusion immediately. I think resolution really takes time, takes perseverance to reach outside of yourself. So I don't have a quick answer for that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I have a question.
Ben?
One of the contentious issues that we face historically is about growth and how the town's going to deal with the fact that lots of people want to move here, keep it a small town and keep that character. Do you have any experience or perspective or thoughts on how we manage that? And we've got a lot of plans in place. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but sort of where do you see Carbondale going with growth and pressure to grow in the future?
Well, I'm lucky in that I found housing, you know, and it wasn't easy in 2008. And I see that as a real issue that's been mentioned many times. I certainly don't have solutions, you know, and I recognize that there are such varying opinions from people who have lived here way longer than I have that want to keep some of that old feeling to Carbondale. One of the things that happened is that, maybe you were there, Ben, I can't remember, when we did this walk through Carbondale to look at all of the different places where Carbondale needed improvement. And so there were a lot of people who, on that walk, who had been here way, way longer than I, 25, 30 years. And it was really interesting to me to hear people say, well, there's a sidewalk on one side of the street. We want to keep it dirt on the other side so that there's a feeling of the old Carbondale left throughout the town. So it's balancing those two things in a place where there's also tons of people who want a piece of it. And I really don't have a solution, but I think it's outside of just Carbondale. It's a valley-wide issue and maybe needs to be addressed bigger than just Carbondale.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I have one.
Erica?
Can you talk a little bit about your experience in budgeting processes? That's what we're coming up on, and so whoever will be a major part of those discussions.
Well, I have experience as I participate in a homeowners association. I was trained as a bookkeeper and put myself through college as a bookkeeper. My father had a business, and when I was, he owned a welding factory. And when I was 17, he said, "You're going to come to work here and learn how to do bookkeeping so that I don't have to help support you through college, so that you can get a job." So, and I have used that working for this small homeowners association. I ran my own business in California. We were a clinic, a psychotherapy clinic, and so I did a lot of the budgeting until we had enough money to hire somebody to help us with that.
Okay, thanks.
Nikki, do you have any questions of us?
Yeah, I do. I have one question. So on the top of the mission statement, it seems like, and I don't know when the mission statement was developed, but the most important thing seems to be the integration of the two communities. So I want to know where the board has gone with that. I mean, you're asking us where we would go, and I have some ideas about where to go with that. But I want to know what you've tried and what might have worked and what hasn't worked.
I'm going to quit asking for questions.
I'm not going to save you this time, Dan.
Yeah. And you're looking at a board who we've only been here, some of us, about a year, except for Frosty.
Excuses.
So I think it would be appropriate for Frosty to answer that question.
So, you know, we really haven't had much, I don't know if luck's the right word, but we really haven't made much headway there. And we did the economic roadmap group, and is where the mission statement came from. And there was a pretty diverse group of people on there, and we had a focus group. And we had one Latino that volunteered for the roadmap group. There was probably 20 of us, and but he, and I don't know why, and it's my bad, but he came to 3 or 4 meetings and then quit coming. And since then, I really haven't seen much volunteerism, although I know that the segment of the community cares deeply about this community, but I haven't really seen that on our boards or in running for office. So there's something missing there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not because I don't think we've been tried to be exclusive in any way with our volunteer boards or this board. But that's a shame that 2004 and the roadmap group was the last time that I was on a board with a Latino individual.
Did you want to share some thoughts?
Well, most recently, and I think we talked about it a little bit before, is we are working on a resolution, and we had this group of leaders come and present along with a lot of members from the Latino community. And while it's meeting with a group of immigrants, some of them have been here for dozens of years, some recently arrived, and I think one of the things that we need to address, and that hopefully the draft resolution will help address, is also trust, and trust in getting involved with the community, with the government, because there's been a lack of trust there. And so this might help address some of that, because somebody might not want to come volunteer on a board if they're just worried that it might, bring them into the limelight or draw attention to them. So I'm optimistic, and we of meetings outside of this, that underlying trust is a major factor in getting people involved. So I know we're working on it right now. But
Nikki, I'm going to weigh in. Sorry, Marty. Go ahead.
No, I'll be real quick. We want to be on integrating the two communities. At least we're taking the step of acknowledging that's a problem and trying to find ways to address that problem. Part of this is this group that Dan and Erica are working with. And part of it is that we actively want to do more of an outreach to the Latino community. I can't speak to the issues in the past, but if acknowledging that there's a problem is the first step to addressing it, I think everyone here acknowledges the problem and with ways to address it.
I might weigh in real quick, and the short answer is I don't think we've done nearly what we want to do, because I haven't figured out what it is that would be effective. And while we have done some things, I took a tour of the project and various discussions. For the longest time, I didn't know if anything needed to be done, and if so, how. And so, to your point earlier, I've tried to observe. What I know is that in Carbondale, education feels better than it does in other communities. I don't know why. I don't know if that's true, but it seems to be working better. But I think this board would probably agree that it's not where it could be. And so I've really tried to make an effort over the last year to try and observe and pay attention, so that when solutions present themselves, that maybe I'll be more informed. And I think this most recent effort in grappling with a resolution where you're kind of forced to really think about what it is you want to do has really brought some things to light and helped me wrap my arms around it. So I'd say I'd like to think that our significant actions are yet to be, are still to come. So.
Thank you.
Any other tough questions for us?
No.
Okay, thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
Colette, need to join the group? Thanks for being patient.
I'm Colette Armstrong. I grew up in Carbondale. I moved away for college and then have moved back since, after having completed college and worked in professional jobs for several years, and came back to Carbondale and have really enjoyed being back. It's changed a lot, but it feels fresher in different ways, and I can appreciate Carbondale in a different way than I did when I was growing up here, and I'm really excited about where it's going. And the reason that I applied to the board is that I really want to be part of helping to shape the community moving forward, and just see where it can go, and do that as a town.
All right. Thank you. Do you have any of us before we ask questions of you?
Not before.
No? Okay. All right. How about of the board? Anybody have questions for Colette?
I'll get started.
Yeah.
Hi, Colette.
Hi.
Your resume outlined your professional experience very well, so I'm familiar with that. Tell us about how you've been involved in the community. Have you been on boards or volunteered for local organizations or something like that?
Sure. Yeah. Locally, I haven't done very much volunteering. I volunteered with the Historical Society a couple of years ago. But while living in places, I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. I volunteered on as an editor for a industry publication. I volunteered at the Botanic Gardens. So there's been a variety of volunteers that I didn't include it on my resume. Yeah, I've done.
Have you been on any boards of any sort, like decision-making
Not
bodies?
like municipal boards,
or
no.
Volunteer boards, like?
Yes, with Habitat for Humanity of the Denver metro area. I was part of a committee, and it was mostly fundraising, out what kinds of events to host, how to organize those, networking with local industry-specific partners for those fundraising events.
Great.
That kind of stuff. Sure.
Colette, what does it mean to you to be a trustee?
Well, that's sort of a tricky question, because I'm not quite sure what you mean by that mean to me. I think that the role of a trustee is to make decisions in the best interests of the entire community, and that has to cross all sorts of ethnic and age and socioeconomic divides, and overcoming personal feelings about what individuals want, and think about, well, what is best for the community? And a lot of times that requires considering points of view that maybe hadn't previously been considered, being both sort of the heart side of it with the rational side, looking at, when you're faced with a big decision, looking at all of the data available, looking at there's similar, have other communities faced this issue before? What did they do, and how did that turn out? And weighing all of that sort of objective data with the heart and soul of the community, and making a decision that benefits as many people as possible, really. And so that's sort of what I see as the role of a trustee, is bringing that to the table and using both that logic and the heart to move forward and making decisions. Does that answer the question?
It did, very well. Thank you. Quite other questions of Colette? I'll keep firing my own. Okay.
Since I just asked Nikki about budgets, can you talk about how you would experience with budgeting processes, and
sure,
how that would be part of what we would have to do in the next couple months?
Yeah, so most of my budgeting experience comes from my experience in the private sector, working for companies. So a lot of the companies that I or operate on a project-based system. So looking at a project and saying, hey, this is a hourly, so we can spend a bunch of time doing this, or this is a fixed fee, how do we make sure that this is done in the right amount of time and there's still a profit? While working at I worked for a forensic engineering company for a while, and one of the aspects of their business that was not forensic engineering, but one of the things that they did was reserve studies. And it was usually for HOAs and other kind of private communities, but the reserve study would look at, what are the infrastructure needs, what is the capital necessary to address that over the long term, making 10, 15, 20, 30-year projections in terms of what's going to need to be fixed, when, and how much is it going to cost. And those, got very detailed, but, they have to be to some degree. Mm-hmm. And then just in terms of my recent budgeting experience, I work for myself. I have to do my own budgets and, putting together proposals for work. And I do have experience as a proposal writer as well, and, figuring out what things are going to cost. So I think that's my experience with budgets. Okay.
Heather?
Your letter talks a bit about kind of Carbondale changing and, as you sat down, how it had changed. And what do you think are going to be some of the biggest challenges to town, say, in the next 10 years? And how do you think the trustees play a role in addressing that, or should address that, or should be thinking about those things?
Well, that's a multi-part question.
Yeah.
I think and this is what I said in my letter, two of the biggest issues I think facing the town of Carbondale in the next 5, 10, 15, whatever years is going to be the issue of housing, but not just its growth. It's people moving here and wanting to live here, but then also wanting to work here. And so figuring out space for affordable housing, figuring out what affordable means for this valley, and finding ways to support business ventures that can provide people with the types of jobs that they need in order to live in this valley. It's one thing to be a lifty and working for $10 an hour, but that's not a sustainable income for a 25-year-old living in this valley, certainly not to buy a home. The other thing is that I grew up here, a lot of my friends grew up here. They're going on, some of them now, to have kids. What do we, if people want to keep staying here, it's going to necessarily grow. And so finding space for that, finding space for people moving here to stay. The other side, I think, is, and this, it's not just a local issue, but sustainability and, dealing with the issue of global warming. And we can't fix it for the country, we can't fix it for the world, but what can Carbondale do to address our carbon imprint? And that issue you can come at it from several different ways. Recycling, reducing plastic waste, figuring out how to build green building types of practices. I think when it comes, and this is where my forensic engineering experience factors in, is that when it comes to green building, there's a lot of ideas, but I think that they need to be examined very closely to make sure that they achieve that they actually achieve energy savings or they're actually sustainable. Throwing a panel onto a house might sound great, but maybe a better solution is actually a solar garden because it ties into the utilities better. So, looking at those issues and really understanding this sort of whole view of it, particularly in terms of buildings and that kind of development stuff. Does it work? Is it achieving
what we want? And if not, what do we need to do to make sure that, you know, we're trying to reduce our carbon imprint as a town? So those are fairly complex issues but I think that they're pretty significant issues that are facing Carbondale.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Colette, do you have any questions of us?
I do. This is sort of the flip of Luis's question, but what has been the board's biggest challenge?
Having a full board.
That's a cop-out, man.
That actually has been a big challenge.
Yeah.
It has been.
I could add a couple things. I think we just talked with Nikki a lot about our challenge in engaging our full community in our public process. And I think that's a challenge that we've stepped up to and are going to continue to work on. And then the challenge is, everybody knows it's a challenge. Nobody has any great solutions, but I think that we're, as Marty talked about, between our public process being fair and, you know, efficient and consistent and predictable and all that, we're trying to address. And then by supporting the regional affordable housing authority that Heather's represented us on, I think we've tried to address that. But I think those are both going to continue to, those aren't things that are going to be solved. Those are going to be challenges for the next board and the next after that. But if we continue to focus on them, we'll make headway.
Marty?
Yeah, and I'd also like to say the uncertainty with city market. Sales tax is such a large part of our funding, and not knowing and constantly giving extensions.
Yeah, that's true.
It has been, I think for all of us, very frustrating. It's like, for us to use the expression, fish are cut bait. Last time we gave an extension, but we've given what, 5, 6? We've given a lot of extensions to them. So the uncertainty of not knowing where the largest generator of sales tax for this town, which is the largest part of our budget, where it's going to be, is a frustration that we all feel.
Heather?
Well, and to tie on to that, I think our greatest challenge, and the challenge really being not to present this not in a negative way, do a lot with a little. So whether it's the existing city market or a new city market, you know, doesn't blow the doors out of any budget for Carbondale. And so there's always requests for more than we have. And to try and address those with really passionate citizenry and visitors in a positive way, right? Not presenting them with saying no in ways that leaves feeling like there's no alternatives, I think is the greatest challenge of all the boards up until now for this board, and probably as we move forward, and leaving people with other opportunities or other ideas, or, you know, how do you, sitting there that, okay, we can't give you the 5,000, but here's 3 other ideas for how you might be able to kind of get out there and still make this work. And I think that we're still trying to make sure that we do that and do it well, and have our own, you know, ideas sit at the table that aren't all resting back on what have been the traditional means in our existing budget. And that means just getting to know the community and the other opportunities that are out there and ways to connect people to still get things done, even if we have to say no to a particular exact budget request. So that's a big one that kind of ties off of city market as a specific example.
Frosty?
So, and you know, I don't say a whole lot, as I'm sure y'all noticed, but you know, if we look back from the last 10 years in Carbondale, you know, we've really done a lot of good things. We're in a good position right now because we're leaders in sustainability in the valley, in the state maybe. We've got a commercial green building code. We've got a residential green building. If we move forward with building, we've got those in place now. We had 2 proposals that maybe would have put a city market out there earlier, but the baggage that it came with were not something Carbondale wanted. And Dan and I had this discussion today at lunch, actually. that the last project that was put forward for the city market, even if we don't get this city market, the one we were presented with 5 years ago was not for Carbondale. So we've done that. We went through our own street improvements with the highway and the roundabout. Thought that was going to crater all the businesses out there, and it didn't. This other one's going to be much tougher, right, coming over the bridge. But we've put ourselves, and we came through the recession in 08 and 09 with the balanced budgets. So we've through this as a community, and we're lucky now that we are able to address these big issues that Ben puts up there. We have a housing issue. It's statewide. It's countrywide. It's not just Carbondale that has that issue. But we're able to now, by what we've done as a community in the last 10 years, we're able to sit back and say, okay, how are we going to tackle this housing issue? How are we going to tackle this this community issue with our Latinos? So we're in a position now, this board and this community position, to do some really good stuff. And so that's what I'd say. So whoever gets appointed, I welcome you to come in and help us move forward with and enjoy what we've already done and move into the future with what we feel like we're going to do.
Opportunity. Does anybody want to offer thoughts to the board on the applicants? Okay. See none, we will take a 5-minute break and come back at 7:46. We will adjourn. 5-minute break.
Still ahead of schedule.
So next item up on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I think we'll pull item number G, the resolution 8 series of 2018 establishing an environmental bill of rights, off the consent agenda.
H, G, H.
A, B, C, D, E, F,
Oh,
G.
attachment H, sorry.
So with that, would anyone want to make a motion through F?
So move.
Motion by Ben.
Second.
Second by Eric. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Ebor, Frosty, Heather? Environmental, for those that, would you like to introduce this item? Reintroduce this item? Looks like we have an updated resolution. Some minor edits.
Jump from the trustee board comments.
That's
finishing the consent agenda.
Oh, okay, fine.
So what we did was after we had another meeting 2 weeks ago, and it had pretty significant discussion on our EBOR, our Environmental Bill of Rights. And what we've done now is gone back, took all of our input from our board, and one of the two of the main things were to shorten the actual Bill of Rights. The 10 was 20 points, and we shortened both in the verbiage and the number down to 10, and it was by incorporating what other board members said they felt was important in this to have it to serve as an effective filter of any new development, any new actions we do, and action steps to make our town more sustainable. And so I cut down was mainly was to make the points less lengthy and more of a right and not an action step, and Heather worked her magic with the resolution. And the other thing we did before this meeting is we out to each board member individually and not in a group setting, so it wouldn't be a meeting, but reached out individually and said, is this more what you had in mind? If it is, let us know. If it's not, let us know that also. I had a couple of suggestions, which I think are really the red lines, right? Some wording that both Heather and I felt was appropriate. Dan, we may have has the one we want to have a discussion on the morals, or whether to say morals of this EBOR or principles of this EBOR, and whether or not, my feeling is that I'm okay with either morals or principles. Dan doesn't want to say it that way, so I'd like to hear what other folks feel on that, and then I think for the rest of it, though, I think everyone's been pretty much in agreement where we want to be, so we're open to hearing else.
Thanks, Frosty. Heather?
We talked last time about kind of how this would be used, so what's in the resolution and then what's kind of on the poster on the wall. And we thought what would be most appropriate then, as written, is you'd almost start this very cool poster with "now therefore be it resolved," and so you'd be able to see the resolve of the Board of Trustees and the significance it holds, the introductory paragraph, the 10 points, and the signature by the mayor.
Thank you. I think you guys have done a fantastic job reading the comments from the last meeting, and as well as other items. As we said before, I really appreciate you reaching out to the public, to the e-board, and finally to us. So I think it's a great document, and my guess is there won't be a lot of dialogue because we're just approving it. It's because a lot of work has gone into it, so I appreciate it. Everybody's had a chance to read it. I think there are some red lines here, but if possible, what I'd like to do is only bring up issues that people have rather than go through each one. We'll assume that good unless somebody has a particular issue and you guys want to talk about morals and principles. But I'm not seeing anyone, so you want to talk about Morals versus
I
principles.
thought that was your issue. Okay, so here's our, and I understand what, so we come from, you know, morally with the EBOR, the Environmental Bill of Rights, and the different rights we have in our town to be sustainable. And so there's, and should I read these out so people that don't know? The rights or no?
If you're willing to stay late, go ahead and read it.
Well, now you've already told me I have to stay late whether I do this or not. And so,
They have copies.
oh, y'all have copies out there?
Some copies in the
Okay,
house.
everybody has copies. Okay, so you already know what the rights are. So what? And I'll speak for Heather and I both because we've talked about this, but we both feel like we do have a moral obligation to do the right thing by sustainability, and so I'm not as concerned about saying, well, if I'm not trying to say someone's immoral if they're not doing, that they don't believe in doing everything they can to have clean air and clean water, but I do think it's the right thing to do. So I do think saying it's a moral, it's to pursue the mission morals of this Environmental Bill of Rights. I don't think that's overreaching because I think it's the right thing to do, and I think, and Dan, I'll let you say why you don't, if you would please say why you think that's too is a different word, and if so, what that different word would be.
Well, I would first say that I'm not willing to fall on the sword for this particular issue. For me, my preference would be to simply say and volunteer efforts to pursue the mission of the board, rather than, or EBOR, rather than say volunteer efforts to pursue the mission and morals of this EBOR. For me, we've just heard, there's a lot of diversity in town. And I think there are a lot of different reasons why people do different things. I have my own drive me, and to me, adding the word morals adds judgment to this that I think reduces the common denominator. And for me, I want people to act because they're inspired for whatever driver they have, and I don't necessarily feel like it adds to that inspiration. But those are just my thoughts. So, yeah. But like I said, I can accept it either way. Feel strongly one way or the other. Leave it in, take it out.
Ben?
No, I mean, I think this is a great document, and I really seriously appreciate you guys' work and the amount of back and forth that we've engaged in. And in my email, I said, I hope I didn't feel like a thorn in the side of this whole thing, but I wanted it to be something that I could really say, that's a great document, and I can say that right now. So I really appreciate all the effort that went into it to make it that. Whether it says morals or not, I agree with it said. So I would go that way, but it's not, vote to approve it either way. So I don't think it's worth having a lengthy discussion about.
I mean, so I'm curious to the rest of you guys, because that point about the common denominator is extremely important to me as well. And so if that particular word, if other people feel that there's a significance to that in terms of it being that judgmental statement, I think we don't want to fall on our sword either, and that's a risk, I'd want to be careful taking and maybe just not take if that particular word does reference that much judgment. Again, I'd reiterate that we think this is the right thing to do, to pursue it, and so there's an element of kind of taking a stance around that, whether it stays or goes. I like that if it goes, it just goes, that whole piece goes. Pursue the mission of this EBOR.
I think to inform the motion, let's just take a straw poll. If you feel like morals and or principles should stay in there, raise your hand. Frosty.
We just want to see you for a vote.
No, yeah, we just want to see where y'all are. And here's
I always say simple. I think scratching it is fine.
And I think that's. I'm totally okay with that.
Statement.
And what I would say to all of my fellow board members, with the exception of Marty, who's almost as old as I am, is that when y'all have been working on this for the next 20, 30, 40 years, and you still, and you get down that road and you say, God, you know, maybe I can be a little judgmental about these people out there blowing that diesel smoke out souping their truck up so they can blow diesel smoke up in the air. You know, maybe I can be a little judgmental about stuff like that after you've been working it for 30, 40 years.
I'll let you know.
Okay, please. I'll be gone. I'll be gone to glory, but I'll have some kind of insight into it.
Well, I just want to commend Frosty and Heather. After our last meeting, you've done an awesome job. You're making the points that we want made without getting into the specifics of how we're going to get there. It was interesting. I went to Jared Polis's meet and greet at Willits last Thursday, and this subject came up, and he advocated that, you know, we don't know what technology is going to be 5, 10, 20 years from now. So rather than say specific things, just say what our goals are. To be carbon neutral by 2040, for instance, rather than how we're going to get there. So, and I think you guys did an awesome job. I think this document is definitely the new and improved version, and I have no problem supporting it at all.
Yep. Anyone care to make a motion? Marty?
I move that we accept the resolution number 8, series of 2017.
Would you,
On Environmental Board of Rights.
as edited in the
As
printed version?
edited, I believe we're taking out the word morals and principles. Is that correct?
You're making the motion.
Well, no, I'm just making sure that the motion is, I want to get the motion right, Dan.
Okay.
Okay? And, yeah, that's what I move. Do I have anyone second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Marty, seconded by Ben. Any other comments? Frosty, Heather? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right. Thank you for your leadership on this, Frosty and Heather.
Thank y'all.
Nice job,
All
guys.
right.
Frosty.
And Frosty, this will live on long after you're gone.
Good.
All right. With that, we're moving on to trustee comments. Yeah, Marty.
I have several. The first is I'd like to note the passing of Bonnie Fisher, acknowledge her commitment to this community, to education. I think it was very nice that Parks and Rec were able to honor her with a park named in her honor while she was alive, to appreciate it. I understand the turnout at her memorial today was awesome, and that both parents, kids, teachers, whole spectrum of people spoke. So, I mean, this was a woman who gave a lot of herself to this community, and hats off for a life well lived. Secondly, I'll just move on quickly. There's a hootenanny this Friday at 4th and Main, which is to celebrate 1 year of the Creative Arts District. It's also a fundraiser for KD&K, and the Heathens are the headline act. And keeping with the musical theme, on Sunday, the second Sunday of the concert series continues at Soper's Park from 4 to 7. No alcohol, no glass, no pets. Otherwise, it's free. Please come. If you can't come, please listen on KD&K.
It's free, but you'll accept donations, right?
We will gratefully accept donations. They are tax deductible. You can give them to me. You can give them to Renee, or to Jay, for that matter. Cash, check, money order, check, whatever. We'll take it. And that's my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else? Frosty.
I do. So, and I know y'all saw the email that I sent asking for the locations of the warnings on trash, and you saw the addresses. And there's when we passed this this new and improved ordinance on securing our trash to keep wildlife from coming into the town so much and themselves of trash. My understanding of when we did that was we okayed the board that did that, and we did an increased fine and put the hours out there when you put your trash out, and you had to have an enclosure and all that. And so we I think the first offense went to $100, but you could get a credit on it. And help me, Jeff, I don't remember this is exactly right, but you get a credit if you went and got a bear-proof container. And we talked specifically about warnings for own trash, but my understanding was not that every year we were going to issue 20 warnings before we issued tickets. And as most of us know now, because we've run the ad in the paper, is that we've had a sow and a cub in RVR for the last couple of weeks. To my knowledge, not that I would know for sure, because I think if once we put a bear down in Carbondale, that it will really upset me when that happens for the first. So it may have happened already and nobody's told me, but to my knowledge, it has not happened yet. I don't want it to happen on my watch. I don't want it to happen on your guys' watch. If we've got 20 addresses here where we've had to give warnings out on trash, then we're not doing our job on securing our trash, because that's the main reason bears get tagged and euthanized. And sometimes they ran out of the drugs one year and shot them. It's heartbreaking to me that we are that. So I would ask Jay that I want to give our officers some discretion on warnings, but to give 10, 12 warnings on Barber Drive and 6 on Wheel and 2 on Jacobs, 1 on Seabury. And I guess I'd ask, how many tickets have we issued now? We good?
We haven't. What we do is we track them on a spreadsheet. So we give everyone a warning first. We have no way to tell whether those occupancies have changed from year to year. Second one, there's a column, ticket, then the escalating ticket, and then the very high ticket based on the ordinance. So we haven't been back to any of those places with the first warnings yet from the side. But the folks out in the field actually have it spread, like, here you go. If you go back to this spot, it's a ticket. And then we've done the PR, and then in neighborhoods where we have, like on Barber, there's times we'll go out and like notice the whole neighborhood sometimes too, when reoccurring issues. But there's been no tickets this year, but there's been not a single person repeat who's gotten a warning yet.
Okay, well, I would just ask us all to be aware of this, and I'm not sure that it was. I never envisioned this when we did this because we tried to do it where it wouldn't be overly restrictive on people and their trash, about allowing warnings. But personally, when most people spend way too much time watching reality TV and getting their news off Facebook, I like the stick approach on stuff like this. I think people have had plenty of time to secure their trash, and I'm over giving warnings. People ought to not secure their trash in bear country. And that's my feeling. Y'all obviously can feel the way you want to, but as soon as they have to put that first bear and cub down because somebody's left their trash out, you're going to feel bad about it. So, I'll now, and still on a better note, our expedition director, Lynn Sanson, most of you probably saw that he and his son summited El Capitan last month. What an awesome accomplishment for Lynn and his son to do. It was his third try. He started up this thing. I can't even imagine climbing up that thing. 3 days and 2 nights on El Capitan, and one of our friends and neighbors did it on his third try. So kudos to Lynn, and but if I talk about climbers, and indulge me a minute, I have to say, memory of Ryan Jennings, a dear friend, and who's died a year, 2 years, almost 2 years ago now, or maybe it was 2 in this February, on that ice pillar up by Redstone, and left a wife and a daughter and a son. So always remember, and you see Robin and Becky and Brooke, give them a hug and a smile, and we got some really accomplished, wonderful people in this town that do a lot of great things, and we should recognize them when we can and remember them. So that's all.
Thank you, Trustee. Anybody else? Heather.
One very We have a final RFP for the affordable housing, so I'm going to send it to you guys. I'll make sure I use some of the personal ones. I'll give you a deadline. If I don't hear back, then that's Carbondale giving their official okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. Erica?
And we are still struggling, I think, to try and kind of get some of the sign-off from some of the other communities. So as you guys see some of those other representatives, if we could kind of see if we can push that along a little bit, that'd be great.
Anybody in particular? I'll see them all on Thursday.
Sure. I mean, I can let you know the designees from the rest of the communities, if that would help.
Yep.
Yeah, happy to do that.
I have two things. In our consent agenda, we approved the resolution for the FMLD grant that Parks and Rec is applying for equipment. And I had mentioned last time with a family about accessibility. So I've been emailing with Eric. We haven't had a chance to meet yet, but just back and forth about how we can get these families kind of the ability to give some formal comment on equipment that might be picked in using this grant money. So I just wanted to follow up with you guys on that, and that we're working together on that. And then I was, somebody reached out to me who is potentially going into a partnership with one of our marijuana grow houses, and asked me when we were going to be the marijuana regulations. And I know we had talked about that a couple times, that it might be on a work session agenda. So I wanted to check and see if, because I remember the other guy from Tumbleweed had come a couple times with suggestions.
I think we were going to wait till we had enough to justify a discussion.
Okay.
I don't think we have anything.
Well, I mean, we have a list to work. I haven't scheduled that yet. Part of it is to get Mark's time to actually get some focus on the legalese on it, and kind of come up with some ideas from the staff level what we need. But I brought it up with Erica. We need to get that agendized in the next couple of months, or else it's just going to slip to next year.
Yeah, it seems like we definitely want to do it this year when we have the critical mass to do it. So
maybe we'll put it down for the September meeting.
Sure.
Okay. Work session.
Okay. And are you saying like critical mass of to address?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if there's one that has that critical mass by itself, that's fine too.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to keep it short and just mention that we'll have a RAFTA board meeting on Thursday, and as probably read, we're going to be discussing e-bikes on the trail, which is RAFTA's jurisdiction, not necessarily individual municipalities. So if you have any thoughts, let Ben or myself know before Thursday morning. We may or may not just act on the bridge closure time frame. We may act indefinitely. So please weigh in. Any other comments? Mark sends his best from Canada. I know he doesn't have any comments tonight. So moving on to the LiveWell presentation. Jay, you want to introduce?
I can. Eric's on the hot seat.
Eric.
I'm happy to report that our HEAL Commission, or HEAL Committee, has been doing some very excellent work on healthy eating active initiatives and programs. And back in 2014, we linked up with LiveWell Colorado's Cities and Towns campaign to kind of figure out where we fit in there. And at that point, our programming and brought us to what was the status? It was a fit status. There's
elite status, right?
Well, now we're at elite. That's why we're here today. Yeah, so that's why we're excited. We did fit in. There were 4 different levels of that: eager, active, fit, and elite. And so we qualified in 2014 at the fit status. And of course, being Carbondale, we said, well, we want to get to the elite status. So to get to the elite status, we needed to have 5 different kind of policies or programs that really highlighted healthy eating and active living. I want to introduce Julia George. She's here. Yeah, do you want to come up? And
You want me to come over there?
Sure. She's the director of the Heal Cities and Towns campaign at the state level. So she's here to present for us. our elite status. And in your packet is a press release and kind of a little detail. The press release hasn't been released yet because I want to get the photo, the plaque being awarded, and then include that with the press release. So that'll be released soon. But I really want to highlight the local members that have really been a part of this work and what they've been accomplishing. So, Margaret Donnelly, can you come up? And is anybody else here from the HEAL? Oh yeah, Gwen, why don't you come on up? So the local HEAL Coalition members, Rita Marsh, Artis Hoffman, Gwen Garcelon, Cindy Weaver, Elizabeth Kamek, Eileen Pevick, Diana Tara, Jennifer Boucher, Hanya Gotardo, Lynn Ruoff, and Margaret Donnelly, who's leading up this whole effort. She's our health and wellness recreation coordinator for the Parks and Rec department. So she's the one. I'm here to take the picture. All right? She's the one that has been doing all this work. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that. So and all those other people I just mentioned have been super involved in getting us to this elite status. All right.
I just came really to give props to Margaret and how she's helped to make this all and stewarded this really cool project Farm RX forward. So she deserves a lot of props.
Sandy?
Sure. So I'm Julie George with LiveWell Colorado, and it's great to be here tonight to congratulate you guys and give you your plaque. Carbondale really has done a lot of great work. When Eric and I talked a month or so ago to catch up and see what had happened since last time we talked, he told me about the garden boot camp and scholarships for low-income residents, and that was just great because our low-income populations tend to have more chronic disease and less access to healthy eating and active living, and Carbondale is really taking this on for residents, and wanted to congratulate you guys for that. And your sidewalk and trail assessment, those are expensive things to do, and then they're expensive to implement, but you have to take those first steps. And I'm here with my daughters, and so we were walking on, well, it's not Main Street, but just over there to find dinner, and it's like the real complete street concept that you guys have adopted, with some of the patio seating out on the street and using your space in different ways, and markings on the sidewalks, so keeping your pedestrians safe, and trying to minimize conflicts with folks on bikes, and tons of folks on bikes, which of course is great. Fits in really nice with your environmental discussion you were having earlier. Even though LiveWell is eating and active living, those two really go hand in hand. We've got to get people out of their cars, not only for our environment, but for their health too. If we just move naturally, we're all healthier people. So it's just to congratulate you for your work, and just keep it up. We're going to find a higher level after this. That's one of the things I've been charged with, to figure out how to do that, because in the last year we've had, I think you guys are 7th or 8th municipality that's made it to the highest level, so I need a new challenge for everybody. So stay tuned for that, so you'll have something more to shoot for. So just congratulations to you all.
Thank you. Committee and to Eric for making it happen.
Sure, and I'd love to get a photo. Yeah. How do you want to? I want maybe you guys should.
How do you
go for it?
Where do you want
I'm sorry, I just forgot your name.
Julie.
Julie, thank you. Or how do you want to do that?
Why don't you guys
over there?
Can we come up here and you guys in the background?
Awesome.
That'd be great. All right.
All of us or just Dan?
I think everybody.
That's all in there.
Just have to get around there.
Oh, we're gonna
Do we climb under?
How about you guys come back here?
There we go. Now
She's more uncomfortable.
I got it figured. Okay, just stuff is on pool at least 2 or 3 times a week, and at different times.
I believe he's cutting us out. I think so too. It's got a wide angle on it.
Yes, everyone.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your work.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we have our newest program that kind of put us over is the Farm Our program that we're trying to get started, and we'd like to make this a longevity program. And so we partnered with a lot of people, Roaring Fork Gardens, Roaring Food Alliance, Cooking Matters, and CSU Extension. So we are trying to recruit 15 families. 50% of them have to be low income. So we're looking for families whose one parent and one child between the ages of 6 and 12 can come. They can get 6 free cooking classes. They can take 2 additional food preservation classes, and then they get a $30 produce basket from Roaring Gardens each class. And it's basically education of why it's so important to cook healthy home-cooked meals and cook and eat as a family together.
Cool.
And then so the produce is, at the cooking classes, they learn how to make all the produce that they're going to get in their food basket. So they can sign up on, and if they speak Spanish, they can contact Diana, and we have flyers up around, and I have an article going out in the Sopra Sun, hopefully this week, about it. Yeah, go ahead, Gwen.
And I just wanted to say what I think really has this be in, elite status is thinking outside the box and accomplishing some really cool things all in one project, because the food is local food, and these folks get to connect with a local farm, and it creates a consistent market over these several weeks for a local farm. So it's supporting a business that we need so vitally, our local farms, and it's connecting our low-income population, with something that they may not always get a chance to interact with. So I think it's really pretty special.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming and presenting.
Nice job, you guys.
Okay, we are moving on to item number 7, public hearing, transfer of ownership, Colorado Product Services for retail marijuana, 580 Main Street, Suite 300. Also retail cultivation at 655 Buggy Circle, retail marijuana products manufacturing also at 655 Buggy Circle, and medical marijuana products manufacturing at 655 Buggy Circle. Thank you all for being here. And
I've got to recuse because I'm in the noticed area of my offices.
Note that Frosty's going to recuse himself. Thank you. Any introduction, Jay or Kathy? Or we'll just...
Not really. I mean, when James started, when I was 2009 or 9, he was the first retail store in the town, and now they're up to like 72 employees.
Wow.
Between the MIPS and the cultivation and the store.
All within Carbondale?
No, we've got a large operation in Rifle as well.
Oh, okay, that included okay, when I heard the 72 today, but... after the first day, it started out a little rocky, but after that, there has not been one complaint about this company in that entire time. Cool. So
that's great. And that's not true for other companies. That's great to hear. Appreciate that. So this is essentially a formality, but you're welcome to introduce the change of ownership or make your case.
My name's Brian Tanner. I'm a lawyer. I actually live in Denver, but I've been representing James and Colorado Product Services for, almost 4 years now. And, as you mentioned, they own the 580 Main Street, and they also own the infused products manufacturer on 655 Buggy. So, since 2009, like Kathy said, they have grown significantly. And I think really they're, in my own personal life, they're kind of an exemplar business as far as compliance and adherence to local regulations, along with trying to be a steward of the community. And I don't really see that this change of ownership is going to affect that in any way, since it won't affect the use of the 2 facilities which are located in the town. James is selling his interest to Sarah and this is Sarah Johnstone, and she is a local resident and has experience in the marijuana industry, and yeah, that should pretty much summarize it if you guys have any questions.
So one of the reasons I think, because this was before my time, one of the reasons I think we added regulation for local ownership, sure, particularly in a new industry like the marijuana industry that was new to everybody, that we would have local coordination and communication. Sounds like, James, you've done a fantastic job. Can you speak to how that's going to continue?
I don't anticipate any issues with it. Okay. I won't be involved going forward, but I think, you know, honestly, I don't foresee any issues where that would be of concern.
Yeah, definitely not. We'll continue to all the highest compliance standards in the industry. So we get our bi-yearly audits that we hold to ourselves, and then we update per compliance every 6 months to comply with the MED rulings.
Sarah, could you quickly just give us a little bit of background in the industry and maybe even with these businesses?
Yeah. I moved to Colorado in 2009-10, right at the end of the year, to specifically come into this industry and help with the production of the product. Mm-hmm. I lived in Boulder for that entire time. I moved up here in June 2016 to start with this company. Okay. And I helped launch some of their edibles, and I am responsible for their compliance packaging and the day-to-day operations.
Okay. And have you met Kathy yet?
I met Kathy today, and I actually met her a year ago with my fingerprints when I moved into town.
All right.
But
Kathy Bulldog Derby, so you should know that.
I'm point taken.
They have a really incredible staff. They've been, whenever I've needed to contact them, I don't know his last name, he gets back to me right away, and that doesn't always quite happen in this industry. So I've been really impressed with the employees working there.
Good.
Right. So I have no issues, and if anything, it will help timing, because all of their licenses are going to expire on the same day from here on out, where they've had like 4 different expirations, and it was very confusing. So I think it will be kind of clean going forward for both of us.
Does the board have any questions of Sarah or James or anyone? No? Okay. This being a public hearing, I will open up the public comment for this hearing. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address us on this issue? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. On page 78 of our packet, there are 4 separate motions that Kathy has asked us to make. So I'd entertain those.
I move to approve the transfer of ownership of Colorado Product Services retail marijuana store license from James Leonard to Sarah Johnstone.
Second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Marty. Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Thank you, Erica.
I move to approve the transfer of ownership of Colorado Product Services retail marijuana manufacturer infused products facility license from James Leonard to Sarah Johnstone.
Second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Ben. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. All right.
Let me keep going.
Sure.
I approve the transfer of ownership of Colorado Product Services medical marijuana manufacturer infused products facility license from James Leonard to Sarah Johnstone.
Second.
That's the medical marijuana.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Marty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. All right.
And I approve the transfer of ownership of Colorado Product Services retail marijuana cultivation license from James Leonard to Sarah Johnstone.
Second.
Motion by Erica, seconded by Heather. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. All right. Good luck, Sarah. Good luck, James. I don't know what your doing, but good luck.
Thank you very much. I'd particularly like to thank Kathy Derby, who's been especially helpful through this entire process since 2009. Really appreciate Carbondale going out on a limb and kind of allowing us to be an ambassador in the industry. So
good.
Thank you all.
Right.
Thank past members, the cops for showing up when alarms go off, all that stuff.
Thanks for leading.
Ambassadors,
All right.
thanks.
All right. So we started. Item number 8, discussion on trustee applicant interviews and possible appointment. We've all read the applications. We've all heard the interviews. The way this has worked is, whoever feels strongly would make a motion on a person. We discussed this at the last meeting, that it would be nice to have a little bit of discussion ahead of time. So I welcome that discussion, and I would just encourage us all to keep the comments positive. If we achieve anything by picking on anybody, so let's just try to find someone who's going to be the right fit. And Marty is first out of the chute.
I'll start it off. I'll repeat what I said at the last meeting. We're blessed with an infinite of riches. We have 6 very good candidates. We can't go wrong picking any of them. Personally, I have a preference. My preference is Louise. And I say that because, well, he's only been in town for 2 years. He's been in the Valley 8 years, and he probably understands, as do some of these other candidates also, the problems we have with affordable housing. We speak about reaching out to the Latino community. We had many opportunities to have a Latino representative on this board. So while, Hank, Nikki, Julia, they're all excellent candidates, and I could live with any of them. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't take advantage of this opportunity. More diversity on this board.
Thank you, Marty. I think it kind of makes sense we don't have to go in order, but I think we've talked about everybody kind of stating their opinions. Is there anybody who wants to go next? Or I'll pick you.
I'll keep it going. I agree with Marty that we've got a great pool of candidates to choose from, and I really hope, we can only appoint one of you. So I really hope that those of you who aren't appointed tonight don't take that in any way personally and run 8 months from now, which is the way that we'd like everybody to join this board, is through that process. Having said that, I think Hank and Luis, to me, stand out for bringing kind of 2 different perspectives to the board that we might not have right now. And Hank being here for so long, being connected with the senior community he talked about, and just kind of his sense of balance and decision making and things like that. Not that we don't have that, but I think that that would be a real strength to our process and understanding the history behind a lot of the things that we face. So, and I think Luis, for a lot of the reasons that Marty mentioned, I've also had people just approach me, since this has been a public thing and people can give us their input, and really advocate for Luis. I know him personally. I met him just recently through this process, but I would strongly support either of those candidates. Right,
Ben? I'd just like to second what you said. We can't go wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a question of which perspective you want to come from.
Add for Luis this on the not only the potential outreach to the Spanish-speaking community, but also I think his arts background. At first I didn't really see that and the alignment of that with so much that our town does, but to have a professional in that field on this board, I think would be a great asset as well.
I'm going to defer and keep going. Erica?
This is really hard. I echo you guys, of course. I think that everybody who is here and who has come to meetings before, I really appreciate you stepping up. I was only appointed not very long ago, so it feels a little strange deciding on an appointment. I think I was really glad that Hank has thrown in his hat. I agree that he would bring a lot of history to the board, really connected, and lots of experience. That's why I asked the question about the fire district, but lots of experience with other boards and nonprofits in Carbondale. And I know, we don't actually know each other very well, but we have lots of other people who all know each other in our circles. And Luis also rose to the top for me. And partly with the arts, I think he's clearly volunteers a lot. I saw him work in the fair over the weekend, but everybody volunteers a lot as well. And then I also, Nikki really rose to the top for me. I think she brings really great experience and wisdom to the discussion. I thought she was thoughtful and a really good listener. She asked us good questions. So those are kind of the three that but I like hearing what you guys are saying. So.
Erica, Heather?
This is crazy. I mean, seeing everyone who says I'm nervous speaking in crowd and then sitting there so eloquently speaking about your passion for the community and joining the board, and this group especially, I guess, really everyone having such a respectful approach and thoughtful approach to joining the board. Here we have this age spread, we have this like ethnic background spread of individuals, gender. Hank, you know, I'd run into a building with you any day. Like you just you exude a calm confidence that I think was really impressive. And Jade, your sort of healing approach to everything that you do, clearly, and how you want to bring that more and more into the community is amazing. Julia, you're just incredible, the work that you're doing in the town, volunteering. Your experience, certainly with the town, rises to the top for me, definitely. Luis, I think, as well, that it wasn't a connection I was making until tonight regarding our creative district and having that experience on the board, as well as the diversity. Nikki, you've spent a lifetime dealing with issues that I think 99% of the world not only doesn't think about, can't fathom, and probably couldn't handle, frankly, doing as a career. And Colette, full disclosure, is my neighbor. Neighbors here. So not only do I enjoy drinking beer with her in the backyard, she spoke so eloquently, and I really appreciated Colette's approach to how to resolve it, right? What other communities have addressed this? Find the precedent, bring it forward, really evaluate it. So I thought that was amazing. The only thing I can come back to is what I've heard from the community, which as well has been recognizing that we had pretty much a full candidate that was coming forward to participate and be appointed. And I've heard that from multiple places, both just unsolicited as well as then some of my network of friends. So this is absolutely it's the most difficult thing to do, but if I were to listen to that aspect, that has put Luis as a top for me as well.
Thank you, Heather. Frosty?
So, Nikki, first let me apologize to you publicly for not being able to get hooked up and have a chance to meet before the meeting. I know, I'm sure you got the message. Try to call you, but anyhow, sorry for that. I came into this meeting tonight with two two top tier candidates in my mind, and now I've got 4. And you know, I go back to a lot of what I think about this position is that you have to have experience, and it's preferably life experience, but also some kind of board experience, because both of them you really need to sit on this board. You really need to, and you know, for the first year after I was elected, I don't think I hardly said anything at all. I just listened and tried to learn and all, and I'd been on P&Z and the E-board and the tree board, and seems like, and the roadmap group with Lori back in '04. So it's a pretty big to sit here and with the public and your peers and listen and make good decisions and so forth. But I do go back to those experiences and in the men's restaurant. At break, someone said, "Oh, we can't go wrong," and I said, "Yeah, we can. We just won't know it for 2 years if we made the wrong choice or not." So that would come from experience there. You know, Luis, the Latino is really a big plus for him, but the fact he's only been in Carbondale 2 years is a little bit of a detriment for me. Hank. You know, you're having been around a long time. California idealism, does that go back to Country Joe and the by any chance?
It goes back to People's Park.
Well, it's a long time, right? So and I know y'all tired of my stories, but I did take a sabbatical after college in a purple and white Volkswagen bus to Haight-Ashbury. So, yeah, so, you know, I relate a bit. You know, and we need some older folks that kind of like Lori and I and Hank to help make these decisions, you know, of these young whippersnappers who think they know it all. And they know a lot. You do know a lot. And witness from the e-board changes. And I'm so comfortable with this board and the hands that I feel like I'll be leaving Carbondale in a scant 9 months now. I think y'all will do great. So thanks everybody for coming out. Julia, I've so enjoyed working with you on the e-board and getting to know you better. And Colette and Jade, I'm just, you know, it's good to put yourself out there. It really is, because it takes a lot of guts to do that. Say something else, but we're on the air. I'm not gonna, it's not a battle I'm gonna pick to fight. I'm here 9 more months. I'm gonna defer a lot to my colleagues here. I've said my piece, and I'm gonna support with the majority who y'all feel. So in 2 years, y'all say.
But then we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah. I wanted to go last to particularly thank all the applicants. You know, I think it's been said, but it does speak to the character and integrity of all of you to put yourself through this process, especially having all of us now talk about you. So thank you. And I, like Frosty, had a couple priorities or top candidates, but after the interviews, it widened for me. But I want to go in order and thank and just make some comments. Hank, it's clear from what I know of you and from what you put in your application and your interview that you have quite the strong work ethic, and certainly this job requires that. Your community dedication rises above a lot of people, and I appreciate that, and the level of dedication is important to me. I also know you to be a very sincere person, and I think that's important, and I appreciate that, and I think that would be wonderful on this board. Jade, it's interesting the way you described yourself. I can tell that you're, and I think you said 50,000 clients or something to that effect. You're obviously a pretty darn good listener, and that's a pretty important trait for this job. So thank you for doing what you do. Your willingness to jump in as a newcomer, put yourself out there and say, hey, y'all know more about the town than I do, but I'm willing to offer my ideas. I appreciate that. And I thought the way you answered some of the questions a strong thoughtfulness that is also very important. So thank you. Julia, the first word that comes to my mind is enthusiasm, and I think that's pretty apparent. And not only do I appreciate that, but I appreciate what you've been able to accomplish in town, and so thank you for that. I think you've been a real environmental leader and pushing some things that wouldn't have been pushed otherwise, and I appreciate that. And the fact that you've taken the initiative to become bilingual and bring that to our community is impressive. It's something I've been able to do, so I applaud you on that. So thank you. And Luis isn't here, but I also thought that Luis brought a lot of thoughtfulness in his answers. He described himself as even-keeled, and I thought that was pretty apparent, and I would agree with that. And the way that he's volunteering brings some volunteerism. Nikki, I appreciate the way Heather phrased it, that you're willing to tackle issues that nobody else either is willing to or knows how to. Your level of empathy is pretty remarkable, and I appreciate that, and thank you for that work. The way you listened to our questions and the way you responded in saying that you would address issues by listening to the public, resonates with me, and it sounds like you've made a career of doing that. So thank you. You too have a strong work ethic, and that would bode well. Colette, you bring some homegrown solutions, and I think I can relate to putting a hat in the ring in your hometown, and I think sometimes it's more difficult than if you were an implant from another town. So I appreciate you stepping up, particularly when you're stepping up. You know, I think that's needed energy. You've clearly shown some initiative and also creativity through the work that you've done. And that excited me that we could bring that to the board. So thank you. At the end of the day, for me, who I would like to see on this board is one who can have personal goals that I have in terms of the board, in terms of being on a board. One is someone who can have strong relationships with the public. That's one of our primary jobs, is to have those relationships regardless of whether we agree with them or not. So that's one of our primary jobs. And not necessarily this order. We also have to demonstrate leadership in how we present ourselves and how we think through issues, how we conduct ourselves out in public. So that's another important trait for me. And then lastly, at the end of the day, arrive at the best possible decision, right? We can all have experience, we can have great ideas, but at the end of the day, what our job is to do is to come up with good group decisions, and that's tough. The group part becomes tough. So to me, that's what I really used to figure out who would be my top candidate here, because like I said, they're all pretty good. I share Heather's thoughts that for us, the relationships with the community, in this case, when I look at don't offer on this board and what we could most gain is a connection to the Latino community. So that was important. But I also thought that Luis in particular, the even-keeled aspect of the way he responded to the questions and the thoughtfulness of how he approached them, I thought was a good balance. So I tend to think Luis might be the best fit right now. So those are my thoughts. I think as I look at where we are, there's not a necessarily clear top candidate. So anybody is welcome to offer thoughts. If you feel so strongly, you could make a motion. Marty?
Make a motion that Luis to fill the term, the seat vacated by Katrina Byers.
All right. There's a motion by Marty. Would anyone second that?
I'll second that.
Motion by Marty, seconded by Ben. Comments and thoughts on that? Yeah.
I'll just make a comment. Again, these are not bad choices. Hank brings a historical perspective that I feel we lost when Stacy resigned. Okay? That I feel that we're missing. The fact is that I feel that while all the candidates on qualifications, the fact that we haven't had a Latino applicant, okay? When both of you were appointed, we didn't have a single Latino applicant. If we're serious about trying to bridge gaps in our community, he is a qualified candidate. I think we should try to make that effort. And this isn't speaking about just because he's Latino. He's obviously a qualified candidate, as is Hank, as is Julia, as is Colette, as is Nikki. They're all qualified candidates. Some have more strong points in one area than another, but they're all qualified. But if we're seriously trying to do outreach here, if he isn't qualified, then what are we looking for?
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say it goes way beyond that for me, that I've had a lot of people who know Luis really well reach out to me and advocate for him and his volunteerism with KD&K and the kids' sports teams, the arts background. I just think that he'd be a really good fit for this board and a good thought decision maker, well-informed, well-educated professional. He'll do his research. All that stuff really matters.
See no other hands, I will call for the question. Actually, roll call vote, Kathy.
Heather Henry.
Yay.
Marty Silverstein.
Yay.
Erica Sparhawk.
Yay.
Ben Baumfock.
Yes.
Frosty Marriott.
Yes.
Dan Richardson.
Yes. Okay. Congratulations to Louise to be here. Thank you all for your efforts, and remember there's an election in 8 months, so you'll get
to run.
There'll be 5 seats open, so.
And lots of other boards too.
Right. Lots of other opportunities.
Okay. So not only did item number 9 is the Compact of Colorado Communities Member Agreement. I was kind of hoping to prepare a memo. And I didn't think we'd have enough time, so I just assumed postpone this again, unless anybody has any thoughts on it. Okay.
All in favor. Everyone wants to leave.
Jay, Kathy, anything else before we adjourn?
Just to remind everyone that hall hours change next week to 7 to 6, and Monday through Thursday will be closed Fridays. So if you hear anything from the public, that's just during the bridge closure. And we're modifying schedules and a lot going on to try to accommodate that, and some commuter vans. It's a little bit of an experiment as we move forward, but a lot going on in the next week to deal with the bridge closure.
Okay. Has anyone here on the board heard any feedback on the increase in water and sewer rates?
Zero.
Okay.
My mouth fell open when I saw
My husband.
Look at them, so I thought they were still like $20. I don't pay the bills. I'm like George Bush Sr. when he went and bought that quart of milk and it was over $1 and he went into shock.
By the way, a belated happy birthday to your lovely wife.
Oh, thank you. I'll relay that to her.
All right.
I just wanted to say the pace on the planning and zoning minutes. We're kind of seems like we're caught up a little more, and so we're getting them
pass that on
sooner, and that's great. I appreciate it.
Anything else on City Market? I heard Kroger was actually out here.
So
I'm in section 2.
we should hear something. Obviously, the end of August is the due date. I've been in contact with City Market as recently as today, and still aren't getting any sort of definite feedback. I think there's a good possibility you'll see a request for a more lengthy extension, and we'll have to discuss what that means, and I'll associate with it. But it's all just conjecture at this point, but that seems to be where things are heading. But Joel couldn't give me anything. His comment to me was when I picked up the phone, he goes, "Jay, you used to like when I called you." I said, "Well, it's not that I dislike you, but I'd like to actually get you billed and go so it." Thanks. Have something at the last meeting in August.
Okay.
Better feel where we're at.
Thanks. Is everybody going to be here next meeting except Heather?
Should be.
Okay. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good job, Dan. I wouldn't eat my snack bar, but I thought we were